Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up. I'm gonna make this pretty quick because I really don't want to go into like all the synopsises of these books. I'm just gonna tell you why I liked them, why I thought they were good, and the star rating that I gave them. Yeah, let's get into it. So far I've read 11 books in January, and it's actually a little bit before the end of January. So I have some more that I'm going to read, but I need to film this now. And also, I don't have a lot of the physical copies of these books. I actually only have one out of the 11 because I recently went back to college. So it's gonna be a lot of me popping up the picture here. Ooh, thank you Google Images. So I've been reading a lot of Neil Gaiman this year, and the first one that I read, and the first one that I read of the year, was The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I give this one 4 stars. I thought it was super good. Very weird. I was listening to it with the audiobook, and Neil Gaiman always narrates like his own audiobooks. Really good to hear like how he wanted things like inflected and told. I just thought it was fantastic. I really loved this book. It was so strange, but I appreciated it. There was this one chapter where he was like pulling a worm out of his foot that I was not here for, but aside from that, I really liked it. The next book I read was The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the last book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This book was super good. I love the trilogy as a whole. I really liked how, well, I kind of liked how everything ended up. I'm not gonna say much because obviously it's the end of a super big trilogy and I don't really spoil anything, but I was just kind of sad. I read the last like sentence and I was just empty. I'd spent like so much time reading the entirety of this series, and then it was done. I was like, what do I do now? But I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I thought it was really good. It wasn't my favorite in the trilogy. The Two Towers was my personal favorite, which I feel like is an unpopular opinion. That was the second book that I read in January. The third book that I read in January was Stardust, also by Neil Gaiman. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. This book was a little less weird, more fairy tale-esque than some of the other Neil Gaiman books that I read, but I loved it just the same. I had just finished Lord of the Rings, and it's just so interesting to see like how Tolkien influenced like all fantasy that came after him. Like, I'm not saying he like invented the genre, but there's a lot of influences in like modern fantasy. Then the next book I read was not really a book, but I'm counting it as a book on my Goodreads. I read Bilbo's Last Song, which is like a little tiny epilogue poem turned into picture book thing for the Lord of the Rings. I really just wanted to read it to see like all the beautiful illustrations that were throughout it. It was a really fun read, really quick read, as in like 25 minutes quick, but I still really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Also, here's some of the illustrations that I just love, and I want to show someone else them because I think they're beautiful. The next thing I read is also a short story, but not as short as the last one. It is Three Blind Mice by Agatha Cristie. This short story is in a book of like other short stories by Agatha Cristie, and I kind of DNF'd it, but I did read this one story, which is like 100 pages long, and I was like, I'm gonna get credit for this. It was decent. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know. I've just read some of Agatha Christie's other stuff, and it's just like, I didn't think it was bad. It's just like not for me. I would try other books by her at some point, but this little collection that I had just wasn't grabbing my attention. But this one short story was probably my favorite out of the ones that I did end up reading. The next 3 books I read were the Folk of the Air series, or is it the Folk of Air series? I have no idea what exactly the series name is, but I read The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. I'm just gonna talk about these as like a whole, because like, you know. So I gave The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King 4 out of 5 stars, and then I gave The Queen of Nothing 5 out of 5 stars. I know like it's not the best, but I'm still trash for enemies to lovers romances. It's my favorite thing. I need to read more immediately. Like, it has to happen. There's no other option. And while I did really hate Carden in the first book, like, he's the worst. Don't get me wrong. At the end of The Queen of Nothing, you're kind of just like, yeah, okay, I see it. So yeah, I thought it was really good. There were a lot of twists and turns throughout the book. There were a lot of characters who I hated, and then I was like, okay, maybe they're like not that bad. I've never read a book about fae before, so this was like my introduction into reading about fairies, and I really liked it, and I need to read more ASAP. So basically I'm saying I need to read some of Sarah J. Maas because I feel like that's her thing. I'm gonna read agatha at some point, but that's not the point. I'm talking about these. They were just so good. I'm a big fan. I actually bought this right here. I bought How the King of Elfhame Came to Hate Stories. Why are there so many words in this title? I don't know. But I like this series so much, I bought the prequel short story collection thing. So the next book I read was an audiobook. I actually listened to this when I was going for a walk in the snow. And let me tell you, that shit was atmospheric. Oh my god. It was On the Frost Giants by Neil Gaiman. It's about Norse mythology, which I've never read anything about. Like, I knew who like Thor and Loki were, because of like Marvel, but that's it. I had no other background knowledge. I think this is considered a middle grade, but I still really liked it and I want to read more middle grade this year. So I'm excited to get into those and build my repertoire. But yeah, I just thought it was really fun. It was fast paced. It was very wintry, so it was perfect for my walk. I was actually so interested in what I read in that book that I'm now reading Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I keep calling it North Mythology. And like, while it's not wrong in a way, it's still not right. But yeah, I'm like halfway through that and that's super good so far. Very informative. He also, like I said earlier, he narrated this audiobook as well, and it's just so much better than like having some rando narrate it, you know? The next book I have is the book that I actually have with me. It's A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. We need to talk about it for a minute though. I thought the plot was boring. I'm not gonna lie. The plot, like, I didn't care too much about what was going on, but I get attached to characters easily, so I just couldn't not give it 4 stars because I love these characters. I loved how all of the relationships were like coming together and finally becoming one. If you know what I mean, then you know what I mean. Plot-wise, I'd probably give it like a 2. Character-wise though, it's a 5. And in my mind, I know this math is not correct, but in my mind, that averages to a 4 stars. So then the last book that I've read up to this point in January is The Roverandom by J.R.R. Tolkien. This book was so cute. I loved it so much. It's about this little dog who gets turned into a toy by a wizard because he bites the wizard on the ass, like literally bites him on the ass. He takes a trip to the moon, he takes a trip to the sea. It's just so cute. I loved it. Very fairy tale, folk tale vibes, and I was just here for it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was so cute, really good. It's a super short read too, so I'd recommend it if you at all like Tolkien, want to get into Tolkien, just want a cute read. It was so good. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, you should subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.